Brisbane is not the laid-back big country town it once was. Life has become busier and more stressful, and it seems to be getting worse. Cost of living pressures, work demands, traffic congestion, population increase, extreme weather, it's putting a lot of pressure on all of us. So I spoke with a handful of professional Brisbane-based psychologists and asked them for some tips on how you can manage the stress we're all experiencing more and more here in Brissie. Before making this video, on the Posts tab of the Brisbane Channel, I asked viewers what things they were feeling stressed about, and almost half of you said the cost of living was your main concern. Over a quarter were feeling pressure related to housing. Other stressors mentioned by the people who responded include study, work, relationships, traffic, flight path noise. The survey confirmed that there's a lot of people in Brisbane who are feeling a range of different life pressures who could definitely do with some tips for dealing with the stress. But first, I felt it was important to find out a little about what stress actually is, and then how we can know we're being affected, as you could actually be affected by stress but not even aware of it. The first thing I found eye-opening was that stress isn't always a bad thing.
The actual function of stress being motivating, we call it eustress, like EU stress. And it's a not overly spoken about form of stress, but it's where it's doing its job. It's where you feel motivated. It's where you feel kind of driven to get things done. And there's research out there to say that if we experience stress in a positive way, in terms of we lean into it and think, this is going to help me get through this exam, or this is going to help me get through this really stressful thing, that's a good thing. If I wasn't stressed, I wouldn't care, or I wouldn't be doing these things that actually matter.
When I do need to get that deadline in, it's good when that stress response kicks off in my body, because I'm typically a bit of a procrastinator. I'm not going to get that done unless I'm feeling really stressed about it. So in those ways, I think it sort of motivates us to do things that we need to do.
Stress can energize us and motivate us, and it can actually improve cognitive abilities. So let's say you have an important meeting to go to that you have to present at. Your body will feel a little bit of stress, but again, that will energize you and motivate you and improve your cognitive abilities. If stress is long-term and chronic, it actually has the opposite effect.
So how can we know when we're experiencing the harmful type of stress, distress?
I think that often it's in our body. We notice those sorts of symptoms first. So it could be that we're having more headaches or stomach aches or physiological signs of stress. So that could be maybe some of the early warning signs, and then you might start to notice cognitive and psychological symptoms too. So looking at, worrying excessively or ruminating or having memory problems, might be also problems with sleep. That's a big one too.
The other big telltale sign is something just doesn't feel right. So you might be dreading coming home. You might be dreading a Friday night for whatever reason, but that sense of dread or foreboding or wanting to put something off, procrastinating, can often be a telltale sign as well.
Before we get to the tips for handling stress, I think it's important to understand the ways that it can affect our daily lives.
It's sort of the sort of thing that can be churning along in the background and affecting us, and we may not necessarily pick up on that or notice the signs of that. You might start to notice over time you feel more tired or fatigued easily. You just don't have the same energy that you used to, that you don't want to go out and do the things that you would normally enjoy. It just feels like it's a burden, I suppose.
If somebody has been experiencing distress on a regular basis, sometimes that can actually result in avoidance as well. Coping strategies that further lead them away from the life that they want to live. Maybe somebody starts not going to work, or maybe is using a lot more technology or social media, or that doom scrolling. All of these things are essentially escapes of that feeling of dread that I don't have the ability to cope with what's in front of me. It can result in appetite issues, so then maybe not actually getting your nutritional needs met. It can result in increased cortisol levels and stress hormones. And we know that if you were to think about, okay, so we've got somebody that's experiencing chronic distress, and this is resulting in them laying in bed at night, ruminating over all of the things that they feel they don't have capacity to manage, And so they may get 4 hours sleep. And then the next day they go into work and, you know, their ability to even emotionally regulate is decreased. Their concentration is decreased. You know, essentially they're running on empty. And then what can happen with that? If you imagine, okay, I'm stressed and I've spent most of the night ruminating over, you know, the things that I feel are out of my control, and then I go into work and then my performance isn't good, and then I go home and I'm ruminating even more. And so it can create this cycle where essentially you're going to be heightened. And when we're heightened emotionally, our tolerance becomes really little. And so, you know, something that your child does or your partner does within the home, your tolerance is not where it could be. And so your response to that could actually be not reflective of how you would be able to handle that if you had all of your emotional and, you know, physical reserves intact.
There's also a link between stress and physical health.
The immune system is probably one of the biggest things that will hit. So it leaves you very vulnerable to disease, infection, viruses that are around, which of course then weakens everything. So you tend to feel the emotional stress or the psychological stress even more. It can be that run down feeling, the tiredness, the lethargy, can manifest in things like low iron levels, for anemia. And everyone's different too.
They can also experience things like headaches, you know, chest tightness, and some people can experience a lot of tension in their muscles, which might mean that they're, you know, sore, they're experiencing pain. And on top of that, the sleep disturbance really affects the body in a negative way too. You know, it's not able to regenerate when, you know, resting for the appropriate amount of time. It's not able to kind of do what it needs to do so that we can function appropriately.
But I guess what you're really here for is the tips for how to deal with the harmful stress that you may face in your life. The experts I interviewed from Excel Psychology pointed out that as we're all individuals with different personalities and different causes of stress, it's hard to give general tips that will work for everyone. And the most effective approach is to work with a psychologist to come up with an individualized plan. However, there are some general things that you may find useful.
Sometimes it can be that, you know, we do have a good bunch of skills and tools in our tool bag to cope. It could be just things like exercise and getting regular movement throughout the day, and the sorts of foods that we consume, thinking about our nutrition. So that kind of thing, as well as, you know, how are we generally feeling about ourselves? You know, how do we sort of talk to ourselves? That internal dialogue, is it healthy? Is it positive? Is it, you know, is it going to sort of help us move towards the direction in life that we want to be going in? It's sometimes about doing something small every day, keeping a small promise to yourself, and I think that it's helpful to kind of break it down into like small achievable goals, that things that we can actually do that aren't unattainable.
Physical exercise is great, and I'm not talking like running marathons, but movement of the body just to process all of those hormones and those stress responses within the body. So definitely movement. Breathing, you'd be surprised how shallow our breathing gets on a day-to-day basis. So big, deep breaths. Some mindfulness activities, staying in the present. A lot of our stress is related to past things which we can't control, future things which we can't control. If we can stay in the present, we can control that, how we're feeling on a minute-to-minute basis. So that idea of staying in that present moment is really good. Sleep, another great one, and good sleep hygiene, and of course good nutrition as well. So lots and lots of things you can do proactively. Sleep hygiene is your routines and your attention to the little things around your sleep. So going to bed at a regular time each night, doesn't matter if it's late or early, but a regular time, knocking off the blue screens of your devices for an hour or so beforehand, making sure that your temperature and comfort levels are pretty standard, getting up at a regular time every day, starting the day with a rhythm or a routine. So whether it's a meditation or a walk or a big drink of warm water or something, you know, to start your day in a mindful, positive way.
Being social is actually a big one that matters, you know, connecting with friends in a a nice social, I don't know, non-directed way. Just having like a good time with friends or connecting with family is really important.
We know, like, to the minute updates on the war going on over in this country and the horrible event that's happened over here. Like, there is no break from all of this bad news. And while that's all going on, it's, you know, is there going to be a recession? And you know, inflation's looking to spike, and oh, look at that global warming. Like, there's just all of these constant pressures and worries that kind of consume us. Like, yeah, it is kind of crap. Like, you're not crazy for feeling like everything is a little bit difficult right now. But I guess I would also want to point out that I personally think it's good to be aware of these things and know about the world that you live in. But there has to be like a kind of balance there. We need to direct our energy to the things that we can actually control and the things that we can actually influence. Because, you know, I could spend all night worrying about all of those issues, but there's nothing that I can change about them right this very second. So sometimes it might be a bit better to focus on the more immediate things that you do have influence over.
The maintaining of the situations or perceptions that create that cycle of distress is they keep trying to do the same thing over and over and over again. So for example, if objectively you know that throughout the week you've chronically not had enough time to do the things that you need to do and also do the things that you want to do. Okay, so how could we do things differently? Where could you actually potentially improve the moment or reduce the burden? More often than not, when I do talk to adults that are distressed and overwhelmed by the daily demands, usually they're taking on responsibility for everything. And, you know, on reflection, you know, are they actually taking responsibility for things within the home that can be delegated? So for example, if, you know, one adult in the home is doing the majority of the chores, you know, could we actually create a chore jar? And, you know, each chore in the chore jar takes about 10 minutes, maybe 20 minutes to complete. And then does each family member actually pick out, you know, X amount of chores?
But there is only so much you can do yourself, and sometimes it's really helpful to get the benefit of insight from people who are professionally trained to help you in an individually tailored way that matches with your situation. Trust me, I know from personal experience. I had a few sessions with a psychologist a few years ago, and the experience was so transformative that I can confidently say this YouTube channel would not even exist if not for the change in the way I approached life that came out of those 9 sessions. If you have Medicare, you're eligible for up to 10 individual and 10 group sessions with a mental health professional each calendar year. While that may not cover the total cost of sessions, it can definitely reduce the financial strain, but help you access professional and compassionate help. But how do you know when it's time to consider seeing a psychologist to help you with the stress you're facing?
If you ask yourself the question, if I was to put my life, the way I've been, you know, interacting with the world, the way I've been interacting with myself, you know, self-talk and self-care, and if I was to put the past, say, 6 months on repeat, would that actually get me to where I would like to be, you know, emotionally, interpersonally connecting with other people in, you know, 10 years or 5 years? If the answer is yes, great. You know, go forth. If the answer is no, then maybe there's some questions there. Maybe there's some things that could be helpful to explore. And I guess even more specifically, if you're in a day-to-day situation where you are, you know, experiencing chronic levels of distress, or even distress to a level that is limiting your ability to live the life that you want to live, or even more precisely, impairing or harming the life that you're wanting to live, then definitely I think that that's time to get some support.
If you're feeling like it might be worth thinking about seeing a psychologist but still not sure, here's some of the benefits you can expect.
Some clients would really benefit from coping strategies, practical things that they could take home and do. Other clients prefer to be supported and heard. So sometimes stress that people are experiencing is an isolating experience, and people might really benefit from being heard and supported. So I guess we like to provide a space that allows people to feel really safe, to be able to have clarity, to be supported by somebody that's unbiased, that isn't from their personal life, so they don't feel like they're burdening others or that it's inappropriate or it might backfire. And we're trained to provide the right support that helps them. Other clients might really benefit from problem-solving help, ways that, I guess, being supported to solve problems, make changes in their lifestyle, or be supported in practicing things like assertiveness. Other techniques that we might use could be things like mindfulness or relaxation techniques that might be less practical in nature, but equally beneficial.
We also look at how you're thinking, what thoughts or beliefs you have about your life, and will help you manage your thoughts a bit better. We'll also help you with some of the feelings that you get in your body, so the fight and flight response, and we can help you relax your body through relaxation techniques.
Stresses in the workplace are a big sort of presenting issue that people might have going on in their lives, and I think it's really important to seek support for that and to reach out and try and sort of talk with, potentially a psychologist or a trusted other about how to navigate the working world and some of the challenges there, some of the potentially difficult people we have to work with, or the challenging types of situations that we have to navigate. And this can bring about a lot of stress, especially if people are spending a lot of time at work, or maybe potentially overworking, or having situations that are not healthy, like facing workplace bullying or just unfair treatment in some way. And I think that, I'm seeing more and more of those sorts of people coming in for counselling and working through those problems, which is really good. Yeah.
It's actually the connection and the relationship that's fostered between a therapist or a psychologist and their client that achieves the outcome, more so than whatever techniques or tips or things that are used in that session. And so just having somebody supportive that you feel connected to and safe with is really important.
If you'd like to see a psychologist, to take advantage of Medicare's mental health care plan, you'll need to get a referral from a GP. All the psychologists in this video are from Excel Psychology, so if Spring Hill is a convenient location for you, I found the team to be both knowledgeable and empathetic. But of course, Greater Brisbane's a big place, so you may prefer to find a clinic closer to where you live or work. But whoever you end up seeing, I guarantee you won't regret it. I've got a wide range of videos planned for the next little while, so make sure you're subscribed and have hit the bell for all notifications. Here's the latest Greater Brisbane weekly update video. I'll see you there or in the next video.